HistoHelp, NSH's popular podcast that brings tips, tricks, and advice on all those pesky problems you're facing in the lab. Season 1 was a huge hit, and this season is going to keep the good times rolling. We will be chatting with histo legends like Cliff Chapman and Mary Abbuhl, Dave Krull, our unofficial guru on tech, industry partner, and maybe your new best friend when it comes to equipment know-how, Matt Mincer, and NSH members Lynn Grumman and Candace Smoots, whose sound, tips, and advice will really help your lab maintain those high standards. So sit back for a few minutes and enjoy. Hi, and welcome to HistoHelp. This is Connie, and I am with Mary Faith Abbuhl, and I know you by that name because I feel like that's always how your email comes through to me. It's always Mary F. Thank you for being with us today, Mary.
Well, thanks, Connie. I appreciate you getting in touch with me.
Well, Mary is a podcast, I would say a celebrity now here at NSH, because Mary always does a podcast interview for the Poster Podcast, which if anybody has been a longtime follower of our podcast channel, Histo Talks, would know that that was our inaugural programming, was the Poster Podcast, and Mary was part of that right out of the gate. And I think you were a little nervous when we started that, but now it's like, I can ask you on site, like, hey, I got somebody coming and I need you to interview them, and you can just jump right on in. So I love that about you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Sometimes it's always nice to know a little bit of what the person's talking about ahead of time, but I'm usually pretty good to jump in.
You do a good job of it. And so I thought when we were thinking about people to get involved on this season 2 of our HistoHelp series, which is a really popular one, obviously I thought about you, and not just because of your amazing podcasting skills, but also because outside of Mary's podcasting career, she is also a very well-respected histo in our field, and she has been educating and advancing the profession for many years. And I thought, well, if I were going to ask Mary, I'm newer to the field, and I want to ask you a very important question, Mary. How do I advance? Because we're seeing a lot of change in managerial positions. A lot of folks are retiring or making sort of taking steps back, and I want to fill those roles. And I'm newer to the field, but I'm looking ahead. What is some advice? What would be the best piece of advice you'd give me so that I can go forward with that kind of a goal?
Well, I think that, and thank you for that kind introduction. You were very sweet. Stay and keep as educated as you can about everything in the profession, and even things that are periphery to the profession, because I think if you're new to the field or you've been in it for 40-some years, it really doesn't matter. You need to seek out whatever new things and just become educated on all those things, because that's how you learn and grow. And there's always something new to learn. Even, with me going to NSH and listening to teleconferences and doing some webinars and things like that, I still learn at least one new thing every time. And you're never too old to learn something, and you're never too new to continue doing that. I think that's an important thing.
Now, when you say seek that education, that periphery education, what kind of education is that? Any examples?
Oh, sure. I mean, you can be as in-depth as taking a bunch of courses that would relate to your field. If you're a histotech and you want to learn what somebody's doing in the gross room, you might want to take some more anatomy. Or you could maybe attend a workshop that somebody's offering on doing grossing. And I think there's just so much out there that you can learn about, and as I said, things that might be peripheral.
Yeah. So, now, what about like management courses? So let's say I've got this great science background, and I feel comfortable there, but I am looking to make some of that transition. Have you had experience taking management courses? And if so, what are some of the better, maybe not the better ones that you've taken specifically, but certain topics? Was it budgeting? Was it CLIA CAP? Those types of topics that I think that you feel like might help somebody who's looking to make that leap.
Yeah, I think, things that I've done in the past have been mainly through NSH. And I'm not trying to, advocate
No, by
everything through
all means.
NSH.
By all means, Mary, all things
Yes,
NSH.
and all things, exactly. But I mean, that was a fantastic resource for me as a tech. And as I moved up to be a supervisor and a manager, I just find a lot of great courses through NSH. So things like managing people. If you're going to become a supervisor, you're going to want to understand, how do I manage the staff? How do I relate to the staff? That's really important. You can't just walk in and say, well, I've got this agenda and this is how we're going to run things, but you don't get buy-in from a staff when you do that kind of thing. So understanding how to be managing people and relating to people is a big deal. So that I would definitely recommend that kind of a course before you start even considering supervising people.
Now, have you found that that's something that's changed a lot, as you started taking courses like that, or listening to teleconferences or watching webinars about management or managing people? Have you found that the principles in that concept have changed over the years, or have you felt like that has stayed relatively consistent, the basic tenets of connecting with people and managing people?
I think, over the years it has changed. It's changed because our society changes, and how you manage somebody who's a baby boomer versus a millennial, that kind of thing is an integral part of how, you relate to people. And so that kind of thing has changed. I think there's always basics, the way you handle the business day and how you make sure that people are accountable. Those things are definitely, that kind of thing that carries through year after year. But there's always those little nuances that, as I said, you learn something new every time you take a class. And there are some different perceptions by people that, come out in their workshops or their lectures. Cy Wakeman is a really incredible person that I've listened to. She does all kinds of talks. And she has the kind of perception of, you just don't want to deal with the drama kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or leave your ego at the door kind of thing. She's got a different way of looking at things, and it is a very interesting way of dealing with people. Some of the things I like, some of the things I don't. So It's not to say that everybody is the perfect answer, but you take away what you think you can do.
Now, have you found, as you've gone to, I know that you're always at the NSH conference, do you find that you gravitate towards sort of the same types of education, or do you intentionally try to mix up the classes you're taking?
Oh, I usually mix it up. I try to do things for myself, which, if there's a certain topic that I'm interested in or trying to broaden my education on, I will do that. I also take stuff back for the rest of my team.
That's a great tip.
It really makes a big difference when you're going away and you're spending this time away trying to learn and enjoy yourself. And you want to bring something back to say, hey, look, I found this. I think this might be really useful. I may not be doing it, but this could be something that maybe you could be working on. So I think it's important to have that perspective of, you're going there, and yes, you are probably paying for the classes, but it's always nice to bring things back to other people and make them feel inclusive.
Now, it's interesting you say that. I think one of the things that pieces of advice that we give folks who are looking to get employer support and approval for their travel to the conference is, agree to say you'll bring things back, but that's kind of a vague, what does that look like? What does the bringing back look like for you?
Well, for me, and I'm in a management position, so I have my supervisors under me. If I find something that, say, my gross room supervisor would be interested in, I will bring that back to her, and I will bring her the handout and give her the notes that I have. But I know that in a time when I was a tech and I was going to a meeting with other people in my lab area, if somebody went to the meeting, and if it even wasn't me, we would say, hey, when you go, it would be really great that you pick a topic that would be really interesting to us and then do a little presentation. And it doesn't have to be more than 15 minutes. So that was always something that, well, we're paying for you to go, but it would be really nice if you could share with everybody. And I think that's the sharing part is something that I think as you mature in your positions becomes a little bit more formalized sometimes. I think it's important to share as much as you can with your peers, with, maybe even your pathologists. There are a lot of pathologists that, they'll go to certain meetings, but they're very funneled into one type of topic.
Sure.
And maybe there's something that you can bring back to them to say, hey, look, I took this class and it was all about, telepathology. And maybe this is something we can do. The respect that you get back from people because you've brought them something that might be useful to them goes a long way. It really does.
Yeah, definitely. And, it helps you as well as somebody who's in that learning process. I've always found I once got a fortune cookie that said to teach is to learn twice. Oh. So you get that opportunity to really look at the information you absorbed as a listener and then get to really kind of learn it again when you get to share it with others. So that's just another great way of, like you were saying, like constantly learning and being on top of education. And I like that you said you gave that time of about 15 minutes, because I think that can be challenging if somebody is asked to do that, go to conference and come back and give a short presentation. Again, that word short means something different to everybody.
Yes, it does. And not everybody has that same feeling of, I love to get up and teach to a class.
Yeah, no.
There's a lot of people who are like as shy as could be, and maybe, all they need is a small group to sit around a table and just kind of share what they learned. And it doesn't have to be formal.
All right, I'm going to ask you a question, Mary, and you can answer it honestly or not honestly. Okay. All right. So CLIA, CAP, I'm a CAP accredited lab. Regulatory topics. Is that something that you go back to and do every year? Or is that like to learn new about? Or is that a topic that you find you don't have to sign up for every year?
Oh, no, I sign up every year.
Okay.
If there's one that's offered. Well, normally those kinds of classes will help you to understand the new checklist questions that have come out from CAP.
Sure.
They're eternally new questions every year. There's no getting away from it. So, the routine questions we all pretty much know, but sometimes they will redefine how they want their evidence of compliance, and that it's always a good thing to brush up on those, because, you may be thinking you know the answer to that checklist question, but all the little notes define something else, and there needs to be something else for you that you have to do. So that's always one that I don't think we'll ever get away from.
Okay. Well, and the only reason I ask is because sometimes I find myself sometimes overwhelmed by how much opportunity there is to learn. It can be overwhelming when you don't know where to start, or it can be overwhelming when you get really excited about one topic and then you forget about the others.
Forget about the rest, yeah.
That's also a really good piece of advice. That's why I wanted to ask you your thoughts on that, because make sure you fit that in. If you see an opportunity, always fit those guys in.
Well, especially if it's your year to be inspected,
Yes, definitely. If it's your year to be inspected. Oh my goodness. Yeah, well, that is awesome advice, Mary. I don't think I have any more questions, but is there anything else that you would add to this conversation?
Well, the one thing that I did want to mention is that I think some people think, education, I finished my coursework, I don't need to do anything more. Mm-hmm. But once you find that you're, into other classes or just topics that you want to learn more about, I think people will find that it energizes them. And I think that energy is needed by a lot of people who work in the lab routinely and do pretty much the same thing every day. And they get into a rut, and until they branch out and look for some more things to learn, I think that they won't find that energy. And once they do, that energy will come.
Well, thank you so much.
And you are welcome.
And of course, we will see you in Reno, I believe.
Yes, I will be in Reno.
All right, just making sure you're going to be there. Okay, good.
I will be there. No,
you'll be at the podcasting booth, lady. That's where you'll be.
Doing another poster podcast, and that's fine.
Yes, yay! All right, well, thanks so much for your time, Mary, and I hope you have a really great day.
Oh, thanks a lot, Connie. Take care.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you have a tip, trick, or piece of knowledge you'd like to share, let us know. We would love to feature you on a future episode of HistoHelp. Have a great day.